So the first thing is going to be line-to-line abradable skirt coatings on the pistons. So this is something that we've done for quite a while. And what this is it's, you know, we'll send your block to our buddies at ZF or at IAG to get your block bored and honed with the torque plate on it to our specific piston and wall clearances. So for instance, we usually, it's all case-by-case basis. It depends on bore size. It depends, you know, what we're doing with the engine, but we'll just use arbitrary numbers here. So if we set your piston and wall clearance to 1/4 of an inch, so 0.004, and we get the block back. Now we package your pistons up. We verify after we, you know, verify the piston wall clearance. We send the pistons out to line, and we have them add 2 thou coating to the skirts. And then when we get the engine together, get it in the car, and we start it up, that skirt coating actually wears away into the perfect shape and the perfect size in that bore. This has multiple benefits. The first benefit is you get a piston that fits that bore when it's fully heated up. Because, you know, you can machine stuff only so good. You're not. This is why there has to be tolerance in an engine, because nothing is absolutely perfect. However, this coating, when it wears away, it's going to make that piston fit that bore absolutely perfectly because it wears to the shape of it. Ideally, you would have 0 clearance. That would be ideal. You want parts to be as tight as they physically can be without touching. That would be the idea. It's just you always have to allow for error, and you have to allow for a hydrodynamic wedge of oil film between 2 metal parts to keep them from touching one another. So that leads me into my second benefit of this line-to-line coating, is it's also really porous. It's really absorbent. So oil likes to stick inside of it, so it's really slippery. It slides on the cylinder wall really well. So with those 2 things, you know, you can rev your engine more often. You can rev it higher. You see no scuffing on the cylinder walls when we take these things apart. And 2618 forged aluminum piston engines will last longer because now the piston's more stable in the bore, and your rings don't get rounded as that piston's rocking around, because, you know, forged engines develop piston slap eventually. Well, the line-to-line coating, I've yet to hear one piston slap. So does anybody know how long it lasts? I don't know, but I know in the racing and performance side of things, it does make stuff last longer. It does. And obviously, if your piston is square in the bore, it's going to make your rings square in the bore. And if your rings are square in the bore, they're going to seal up on the cylinder wall better and longer. So you're in turn going to make more power. So that's one thing we do. That can add some time for sure, because remember, we got to send your block out to ZF Design or to IAG to get it torque plate bored and honed. All of our clearances set. And then when we get it back, we then have to verify the piston wall clearances just for our documentation to make sure, you know, everybody makes mistakes. We make mistakes. We just like to check everybody's stuff. Check it all, document it all, then we send the pistons out, and it takes a while to get it back. So, like, it adds lead time. The coating we don't make money on, the lead time we don't make money on. I got this engine sitting in my clean room for 2 weeks waiting on these pistons to get back. So it's like, something like that does not make us money. Number 2 is going to be WPC treatment. So this is not a coating. Don't let the internet lie to you. This is not a coating. This is a surface treatment. You can look into WPC treatment on the internet. Moto IQ's made some really good videos about it. This technology really started in NASCAR and in like F1. And it's really just hitting like the kind of the import and domestic like performance market. And it's probably one of the most amazing things that I have seen in probably the last 10 years that you can do to a piece of metal. And the way it works is they take dry film lubricant. It's a proprietary thing, so it's hard to fully explain it, but WPC, it's a Japanese company, but they have a hub in California. But they can make the surface of a piece of metal have half or less than the original friction coefficient. They also make it harder. They make the surface smoother, so there's less chance of crack propagation. So it's really ideal for crankshafts, camshafts, lifter buckets, valves, or really anything in an engine is really good. We've done it to pistons, rings, wrist pins. People do it to transmission parts, like to turbine wheels. Like, you can do it to just about anything. The main place we use it, though, in some of the like real serious engines is buckets, especially on some of these GSC billet cam engines, because billet cams are just, they're strong. It's a really hard material. And when you get metal touching down, you know, through that oil film, your oil gets hot, it gets worn out, it gets ethanol in it, whatever it is. It's really nice to have something extra there that can't wear off, because it's not a coating. It's actually treating the surface of the material. And it's good to just have that extra protection there. But what they do is they have a dry film lubricant that they kind of sandblast the part. It looks kind of like a flat color, like a flat gray. They sandblast it, and it kind of embeds itself into the metal. And it also like micro shot peens the metal into being harder and a smoother surface finished, and then you have less chance of cracks as well. Whether that's a piston or a wrist pin or whatever it is that you use. People even do it to bearings. Again, it is not a coating, so it does not change the dimension. I have WPC treated hundreds and hundreds of parts, and I've never been able to find a measurable difference. But you can definitely feel a difference. So like when I blueprint a short block, I always test fit the crank in the block before I, say, okay, this is good. So I set all my clearances, I put it in there, torque it all up, I give the crank a spin and see how it feels. Now when I do that with a WPC treated crank, it feels even better. It feels so good. So it do it once to some of your parts, or if we do it to one of your parts, you're welcome to swing by the shop and I can show you just how smooth stuff is. It's weird. The part feels weird in your hand. The last thing is dry film lubricant coating on the bearings, rod and main bearings. We don't always do the main bearings. The main reason is because the main bearings don't see the load and the fatigue that rod bearings do. So in order to kind of give you the best of both worlds, so like a little bit of cost effectiveness and to be able to get like the really good dry film lubricant on the bearings, all of our rod bearings, I don't care if I'm building you a K series, a V8, I don't care what it is. Every engine that I build that is going to be substantial horsepower or see, a lot of RPM, a lot of fatigue, and you're going to use the engine, you're going to make it work. We use Calico dry film lubricant ACL bearings. We've used King bearings, and we've sent them out to Calico in North Carolina to have them coat the bearings. We don't really like to do that. The reason is because ACL, you can actually buy coated bearings from them. It's coated by Calico, which is nice because, I can buy 100 sets, have them in the clean room, and the coating's not always perfect. You got to think they're spraying the coating on. They prep the surface properly, and then they spray the coating on, they bake it, they do whatever they do. And it's not always perfect, which is actually kind of nice when I'm setting clearances, because, if I'm trying to adjust something like 1 thou, sometimes it's nice to have something that's just barely different, because you can swap around bearing sizes, but that might be too much of a change when you need just a little bit of a change. So for fine tuning, it's really nice. But let me tell you, that dry film lubricant, I have taken apart some motors that we have been very mean to, for like rebuilds, and wow, does that coating hold up. The whole point of the coating is for it to have, the surface of the bearing will have a lower drag coefficient and friction coefficient on the surface itself. So if something touches it, how well does it grab the thing that touches it? Because you got to think in terms of rod bearings. If the oil film gets pressed through, and now the crank is touching the bearing, the first way you're going to spin a bearing is if that crank grabs the bearing. And if you spin the bearing, it's over. You take it apart. So if you have an insurance policy there of that dry film lubricant, which is literally by itself with no oil, it has less than half of the friction coefficient that it would if it didn't have the coating, which is huge, because you got to think, even in the absence of pressure, like actual oil pressure and flow, there's still going to be oil there. So you add oil to the surface in any way, shape, or form, and then the coating is there as well, leads for really good, long-lasting rod bearings. And when you are in the industry that builds engines for Subarus, where they're there to have an undersized journal, they have a really skinny bearing, a huge piston on the end that's traditionally heavier than most engines. Like, these rod bearings get beat up a lot. And then you got factory crankshafts that don't have super good oiling, and we combat that with stuff. We combat that with, oil port modifications. We combat that with specific oil pumps and regulator modifications, and ultimately a dry sump is the best answer, but not everybody can afford that, and it's not realistic on a street car. So yeah, that's the three main things that we do that make your engine better, but they don't make us money. It really doesn't, it doesn't add anything on our end. At our bottom line, it does not add anything to that. It actually takes away, because now this stuff takes longer. The cost to build the engine is more. And it's, there's a third party involved. There's a whole nother variable here in terms of making the engine get done. If we could coat everything here, that would be easy, but we can't do that. So that's the three things, and hopefully this has been helpful.